Good morning, untethered listeners. It is Abby Rose here, the spiritual accountant, and I'm dropping in for an episode today to talk to you about spiritual accounting and what it is and how it's come into my world and throughout my career as an accountant, and then stepping into the spiritual realms of accounting and what that actually means. And today's going to be a little bit of a journey that I'm excited to take you on. So grab a cup of cacao, sit down and join me for the next little while as we dive into the world of spiritual accounting. It's funny because when I was first, I guess, called forward into spiritual accounting, I actually rejected it. For about 3 or 4 months, I remember the night that, or the day that it landed with one of my dearest friends, and she's a super spiritual light worker, leader. She's forging such an amazing path forward, waking people up. And I was helping her with some financial management. And we went through a little bit of a process. And as things were coming up for her, as we we're going through her zero to get her figures ready for a position of tax and obligations, it was just like this magical experience. I just felt like we weren't even in life. Like it was like this crazy psychedelic trip of moving through waves of emotion and energy and then practicalities. And a lot of stuff came up for her that day around her financial trauma and a DV relationship that she experienced as a result, causing that financial trauma and causing the behavior to not want to look at her finances. So after that day, she hounded me, and she's like, Abby, you have to do this. Like, this is your thing. Like, it's so just the way that you articulate, the way that you hold space, and she hounded me for months and months, and I just rejected it because I had my own, I guess, pains from the financial professional world and from the corporate world and from being an accountant and trying to build my own businesses. So the last thing I wanted to do at that time was go back into a world that I had stepped out of. So I was kind of rejecting it until one day I was like, it's not going anywhere. I've just got to embrace this. And yeah, that's in like 2019 when the spiritual accountant was kind of birthed. It was a bit of a esoteric experience. And ever since then, it's been a crazy ride, but I keep coming back to, well, what is spiritual accounting? And for me, it's the ability to hold space for people to manage their finances in a very holistic way because there's so much financial trauma out there, whether it's from, relationship, from poverty, from the breakdowns in relationships, or from the government. There's people have financial struggles, and it can be very debilitating, especially when I've had a lot of people come to me over the years and have told me that they, were looking at ending their life, and when they learnt about me and what I do and the information I share and how I support people, that gave them hope. So I push forward for a better way for people, not just because of, thinking that the system is corrupt or, there needs to be equitable exchange in the economy. But if we actually go to a deep core level, it's like when you can find that abundance within and the ability to heal so that we can move into a space of creation, that's what's really going to drive impact and change. So, kind of is a big thing, but then at the same time, it's also a very small thing. But it's just me showing up for people wherever they're at, whatever's going on for them, and wanting to be a space for safety so that they can navigate their financial struggles. So when people first experience my work, I kind of took a bit of a step back. I don't do one-on-ones, or I don't, because I have a lot of people that do reach out to me that do, want information or want support. And my inbox blows up all the time with people pouring out their hearts of financial struggles and where they're at and what's going on, and, where they've lost investments or a relationship breakdown. People don't realize I hold these conversations so sacredly because people don't talk about their finances. People don't talk about their financial well-being. So when they trust me to share where they're at, I just want them to feel heard, feel seen in it, and to not feel discarded, or to not feel that, I've always said I've got an open door policy. If anybody has anything going on, it doesn't matter whether you've signed up in a program or not. Like, I have an open door policy, and that's why I have a team of people to help me support people, because it needs it. People do need their hand to be held through this stuff. And I see so frequently when something will happen and people will go into a fear response, or they'll experience that trigger or that trauma, and or that need to comply or provide or submit, and they'll just default into old patterns of behaviors. And it's easy to default into the old patterns of behaviors, and it's hard to ask for help. And there are, a small amount of people that do find the courage to ask for help, and then we continue on the journey. And then there's some people that, when it gets to that point, they think that it's not successful, or it's not working, or it doesn't work, or they can't do it, or it's failed, or it's this, or it's that, or it's they haven't got the ability or capabilities, or they haven't got the courage, and that's when they give up. So I feel that, I will gladly walk beside someone for their financial liberation, but I've had to really take a step back and go, I'm not responsible for your financial liberation. I'll gladly walk beside you, and I have an open door policy and a team to support as well. But if you're not willing to walk the walk too, I can't drag you kicking and screaming. With some of the establishments that we do, I've had people go, oh, the bank rejected me. It doesn't work. It's not a fit. You're not the right person. And I'm like, cool. Like, if you fail one time, do you give up? No, there's always a way. And sometimes we have to go a second time, go to a different bank, but we get the support along the way. Or, some people, they're like, oh, I created this revenue stream and it's not aligned. This is the thing when people say it's not aligned. Sometimes, yeah, it's not aligned, but sometimes it actually is aligned. You just have to go through a process of growing and learning and stepping into something different. And the thing that feels not aligned is actually the thing that's calling you into greater power, but you've got to go through it. So, I feel a lot of people love to just go, oh, it's not aligned because it didn't feel good. But, some things that don't feel good are actually meant for you. I've had a lot of time over the years that definitely haven't felt good. But it's like when you come back to the core of who you are, and your purpose and your mission and why, and your heart and your passions and life, and that's when you find that it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked, you just get back up and keep trying, keep going. It's only failure if you stop. So, yeah, I like to be a place of that safety, but I'm here to initiate and activate you too. It's not going to be easy, but it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. So by being that space for people, I feel like if I go back to the Priestess of Prosperity Oracle deck, right? Everything is so connected. Like you can't make this stuff up. And the Oracle deck it's about transformation. It's Oracle cards that I created, we created, we gifted to the universe. And it's around a modality, the Divine Wealth Code. And the Divine Wealth Code is stepping into your divine wealth, right? And it comes through transformation and ascension, right? But in that ascension path, there's 7 steps of transformation. I won't go into them all, but awareness, understanding, surrender, transmutation, education, embodiment, and then alchemy. So to alchemize your divine wealth, you go through those 7 steps. And it's the education piece, right? Because it's like with anything, you don't know what you don't know. And when you don't know something, it's easy to revert back to old patterns and behaviors because the new pattern, the new behavior is sitting in the unknown. It's unconscious incompetence, right? You don't know it until you know that you don't know it. And then we start going through that learning process. So it's education is a huge element of this. And it's like, what education did we get around finances? Where did we first learn about money? Where did we first learn about how to manage money? Or who told us to get a tax file number? Who told us we have to run a business like this? Who decided that we would rely on tax agents for business finances? And it's like I was innocently indoctrinated into all of that through my whole career and studies and uni and postgrad and memberships and license and all of this. And you're told what to do, but nobody questions why. Why is it like that? And then it's like when you learn something new about that, it opens up a whole new awareness. But just being aware about something doesn't create the transformation. Right? So we have to go through that awareness, that understanding, then surrender, and surrender requires such a deep level of trust. So I find the people that have that trust piece, you either have trust and faith in something outside of yourself, or you have that trust and faith within. And a lot of people put that trust outside of themselves. They trust the government, they trust the banks, they trust the media, they trust their accountant, they trust mum and dad, they trust, so that when something goes wrong, whose fault is it? Oh, well, I trusted XYZ, so it's their fault, you know? So it's this process of when you educate and when you learn, it's not just knowing the information, but it's then using that information to change your behavior in a way that feels good, feels aligned for you. I always say money management is a spectrum. It's not a one way approach for everyone. Everybody manages money differently. You can't cookie cut it. So we got to figure out, well, how do you manage your money? What are you doing? How do you manage your bank accounts? How do you pay your bills? How do you receive? What are the methods of receiving? Can you ask for money? Like how your ability to receive, and then how you feel when you spend. Are you borrowing from your future self and always paying back the past? There's so many different elements to money management. So when we look at that, unpack it, educate, learn something new, but then you take that education and you use it. So that then is embodiment, right? We educate ourselves to then embody that education. And it's through the embodiment process of doing new things that you actually move into that liberated state. You start alchemizing your desires, the wealth, the dreams, the success, the abundance, the things that you desire. And it's not because you learnt something new, it's because you learnt something new and then you did something differently with that. It's knowledge embodied is wisdom. And that's how we can alchemize the divine wealth. And yeah, I see that a lot of people they struggle with the trust component, because they think that it's smooth sailing and that you're gonna start transforming your money world and it's gonna be easy. No, it's not gonna be easy. You're gonna be challenged, but that's the ascension. You go through that vortex of ascension, it requires trust and courage to step into something new. And if it was easy, don't you think everyone would be doing it? It's not. So, yeah, I feel so humbled to be able to share my experiences to guide others and walk beside them. But man, I can't give you that courage. You've got to find it within yourself. And the only reason I'm where I am today is because I found that courage and that trust within myself and I back it fully. So the reason I back myself fully is because I know where I've come from and I know that it's been an ever evolving, ever growing, ever changing journey. And when I first started out in accounting, like even how I got there was divine intervention. Like you can't even make this stuff up. And then, I just fell in love with numbers and I started doing primary production up in Bundaberg. I was doing a lot of primary production and farms, beef cattle farms, sugarcane farms, and I think that was a really great place to start because it gave me a good foundation. Like if I even look at that now and I look at how many people I'm helping in the agricultural space and like in the resource spaces, it's like, oh, I can see why I learned all of these things because now I can contribute my skills and learnings to these people in a way to actually help their farms. But the culmination of every single year spent in business and in accounting is like I wouldn't be here today where I am if it wasn't for it. And it's funny because my whole accounting career, I would be judged. I would be judged. It wasn't an easy career. When you're working in corporate in office with middle-aged men who are the partners and senior associates, and you're trying to prove your worth and prove your intelligence. And, for a young woman, 19, 20, 22, blonde, attractive, it was hard for me. It was hard for me. I was never taken seriously in meetings and I don't look like a traditional accountant and I used to get really offended by that, but it also drove me to try harder. It drove me to work harder and a lot of people underestimate me, I think, because of my appearance and because of my they don't realize how smart I am and maybe take that for granted. But now I see that as a strength as well. And it's like I can hang back in conversations and just observe and listen. And if someone's bullshitting, I can pick that a mile away. If you can't speak to practical, tangible solutions and like speak on a level that people understand and you're fluffing and airy fair and flabbergasted in a way, like I can pick that a mile away. I can have a conversation with someone and I'll know if they know what's up in business and money, that I'll know that they know what's up. And that's not to toot my own horn, but it's because I've got 19 years and in business and commerce. Like you learn a thing or two over the years, and I haven't learnt from the easy times, I've learned from the hard times. I've been around multimillionaires. I've been around high level entrepreneurs, high investment men. I've been around all sorts of weird and wonderful, and I've learned from that. So to be where I am today, I think mostly I'm grateful for it because I know I've got a lot to offer, and I know that I'm offering it because I want to. It's not because of any other reason that I just want to see a different world for people. I just want people to experience life in such a different way. And when you can remove all these struggles and pressures and step into balance and harmony and fulfillment and choosing your own outcomes, that's what releases a lot of the pressure. It's more the mindset than the practicalities. Like, I can give you the practicalities, but when you embody the mindset of financial liberation, man, that's the true gift. We've always been taught to stay small, to not be different, to not innovate, to just live below your means, to trust the government, to if someone dreams for something extraordinary, they're most often told that they can't or they shouldn't or they won't or it's like people aren't celebrated for what they want to achieve. And the mindset shift into when you move into financial liberation is just letting go of all of that outside noise and coming into the truth of who you are. What do you want for your life? It's such a simple question to ask, but do you know how many people can't actually answer that? And if you look at life, all of the decisions that we have in our life, they have a financial impact. So you can't tell me that finances aren't related to personal fulfillment. Like, it makes a huge difference. And it's not like you have to make money to be happy. One of the myths that I love to bust is money buys happiness. People who say that, or people who say money doesn't buy happiness, are probably broke. It's not that money doesn't buy happiness, it's that when you have financial liberation, when you have financial freedom, when you have the resources to live the life that you want to live, sure, it doesn't buy you happiness, but it does give you a lot more opportunities. It gives you choices. And I think that's what people want. Financial liberation is having choices. And the problem is we weren't given a choice. We were just told how to be. We were told what to do. You can't dream big. You've got to go to school. You've got to go into a 9 to 5. You've got to swap time for money. You've got to just make minimum wage. You can't want more. I even look back to my ex-husband, and I remember discussions in the early stages of our marriage of what he wanted to do with his life. And, I was always so encouraging of that. And, sometimes maybe I was a little bit overbearing and overpowering because I just wanted him to step into that. But then, like, I was encouraging, and I'll always encourage people's dreams because why not? Why can't we have those dreams? Why can't we be whatever the we want to be? When I first stepped into spiritual accounting, I had people say, "You can't do that. No one's going to take you seriously. Spirituality and accounting do not go together." 5 years later, me now. I made it a thing. I made it a thing. You got to pave the way for yourself. No one's going to do it for you. And anyway, just going back, I just look at my ex-husband and he's still doing the same thing he was doing, and sorry, but like, don't you want more for your life? And that's okay too. Like, everyone's got their own path. That's just an example. It's just like, why can't we want more? And I'm telling people you can have it. You can have it. But it's not going to come easy. You have to do something differently. You have to step into courage. You have to take some bold action. Dare to be different. Dare to be brave. And, it might not work out, but then what if it does work out? What if it does? And yeah, this is why I feel that we got to stop the noise. We got to stop with the you can't do this, you shouldn't do that, you're not, you're wrong. Stop wronging people for their dreams. Stop wronging people for trying to innovate and create something new. Some innovations, they don't work, some they do, but it's through the failures that you learn. That's how we grow. You're not going to get it right the first time. If you're not growing and changing, you're not like, I feel like if you're not growing and evolving, you're not living, right? You're stuck in monotony. It's like Groundhog Day. You're just living day to day, week to week, nothing changes. You're at the effect of life, things just happening to you. And there's a big difference between seeing people who are at the effect of life and then the people who are at the cause of their life, the people who are creating their life. And when you move from that, from one, that's not an easy move. I remember through my awakening and my process, that's a lot of shedding of that victim mentality, that blame, that outsourcing responsibility, like all of these things, and taking a really long, hard look at yourself and going, you know what? Everything that's happened in my life has either been the direct or indirect result of my own decisions. So you take the responsibility for that. Did I make some decisions that I wouldn't make today? Fuck yeah. We've all got 2020 hindsight is such a beautiful thing, but that shows the growth, right? So I think when people have the willingness to grow, they know they're not, yeah, they know they're still a victim of life, or they're not taking responsibility, or they're outsourcing their power, or they're not stepping into their greatness, or they're not stepping into their true self. They're living a watered down version of what they think other people expect them to be. I think this is when that's the awareness. If you've got the awareness around that and then the willingness to move beyond it, I can see that willingness, and that's where I want to help people who have that. They're like, Abby, like I know what I want, but I just don't know how to get there. And they've got the drive for it. But then there's other people that just still cycle the same behaviors, and they're aware but they don't want to change anything because they're too comfortable where they're at. It's like they're afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of what's on the other side. What if it's not what I wanted? So find what you do want. So there's, for me, I've experienced this in work and I've experienced it in personal relationships as well. And the stagnancy can only go on for so long, right? It's like when you're on an ascension path, when you're on a growth path, let's just look at this from a relationship perspective, because I've experienced this myself. Like you can have two people growing, right? And it's like they're growing and they're growing together. And it doesn't mean they're at the same level all of the time. They're sort of just growing. But, when one's feeling a bit down, the other one can pull them up, and then vice versa. And it's just this beautiful dance of two people growing together and learning together. Or it's like this where one person's like stagnant. It's like a straight line. They're just stagnant. There might be little waves and dips, and but when the other person is like growing, they're like sort of moving up the ascension path. So and the person that's growing is moving away from the flat line, so it's creating a huge gap, right? And that gap in that consciousness at some point, it'll get too far where it's like a rubber band effect, and it's either that rubber band is going to snap and break and that person will continue growing, or the resistance on that band between the different levels of consciousness is going to pull that person back to the lower. Do you know what I mean? It's not anything anybody's fault. This is a response to consciousness and energy. And it's like, if you've the people around you, this is why people when they go through the ascension path or go through a growth, you'll lose friends. You'll lose friends or loved ones because that resistance has just been too much, that those relationships break and or die or fizzle or separate. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just it's different energy. I think it's people moving into different realities and wanting to create a life that they desire. It's not personal, but it's just what life are you creating and who's around. This is why who's around you is important. Environment's important. Do you have people who encourage your dreams and your visions and your creations, and do they support that? And do they see the greatest version of you so that in the times where you don't see it in yourself, they can remind you? Or do they just pull you down and drag you down and say, you can't have this or you can't want that? You've got to do it this way. Be a good little girl. Don't rock the boat. Don't throw stones. I'm like, I won't throw stones. I'm going to be throwing bricks, mate. Bricks. Because environment is important, but it's the energetics that's the most important. Because when I stepped into the spiritual accounting side, the spiritual side of accounting, right? If you look at it, right? So the most valuable resource on the planet is human energy, right? And it's what we do with our human energy that matters the most. Because if you look at how you receive money, fiat, currency, crypto, right, assets or resources, what you receive is the byproduct of what you're putting out in the world. So when your human resource, which is your energy, is the most valuable resource. So your energy has to be managed. We have to manage our energy. We have to manage our energetic levels. We have to manage our frequency. We have to manage our emotions, our cycles, right? It's all going to play a big part of it. And this is where, like, when I stepped away from business and accounting, I went on a huge spiritual journey. Huge spiritual journey. And, I tapped into energies and I did Reiki and Muneiki and Tesla Metamorphosis and shamanic healing and like all these energies and frequencies. I was doing aura readings and like I was going full blown spiritual woo woo energy reader. It's not something that happens overnight, right? But it was like the waking up to energies happened overnight, but then I had to calibrate to that, right? Because I was tapping into something that I realized was there all along, but just didn't have access. So energy is like your ability to manage your energy, to read energy, to interpret energy, to like that's going to increase your value. Because when you have those skills and you can transmute energy or shift energy or just understand energy at another level, it's going to help you manage your own resource. And how we manage our energy is different because, things that I do for me energetically are the things that work for me. And just because it works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. This is where you got to find your energetic blueprints. Like what is your energy, like how does your energy respond to universe, respond to other people, respond, because we're all energetic beings and we're all just vibrating in all of this cosmic dust ourselves, right? So I think people underestimate their power, but when you connect to those energies of your soul and your truest essence, like that becomes the power. That's the resource. It's like electricity, right? And electricity goes through our body, right? Through our fascia. And there's the physical element of that as well, right? This is how we get goosebumps. It's like we're energetic beings. So when you have the knowledge and awareness around all of these different things, it's just going to improve your capacity and improve your ability to share that energy as an infinite resource that it is. So I think a lot of people Like they love the spiritual woo-woo stuff and they love like the cosmic galactic. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm right there with you, but I think it's been over commercialized and we've been pulled away from the sacredness of what true energy actually is. Because now it's all just a social media light language, like performance for people. I remember one, I see, like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of wonderful, amazing, powerful, spiritual light workers out there. And I can just see where everyone is on their journey and love and appreciate all of that. But I feel, when you're doing it for validation rather than just tapping into the truth and sharing that truth as your value for the world, like people feel that. And you don't have to be light languaging. And like I usually say, I don't tell people that I can light language, and I have been able to for a very long time, and I don't speak the gobbledygook. Like it's English, my light language is English. It hits people, it just hits differently in the same heart space, that you don't have to be what social media or society is expecting you to be or encouraging you to be to make a quick buck. You know, when you actually drop into the truth of who you are and you speak from that place and you share from that place and you support people and love people and just show up for humanity from that space, like that's the most valuable thing that you can do. I love the ability and the opportunity to share more on my journey. I've really enjoyed the ability to drop into some deeper conversations around my journey and the spiritual aspects and the practical aspects and the tangible aspects and the intangible aspects of spiritual accounting. And I just want to leave you with this little message today of that everyone's going at their own pace and it's your own journey, and stepping into financial liberation and financial sovereignty and spiritual accounting is it's my journey, and I'm just here to guide others who are drawn to that and want to choose a life that they want to live for themselves. But the door's always open, and there's always opportunity for growth and evolution, and everyone's just at their own pace, and you're exactly where you're meant to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and you can never actually get it wrong. So why not just enjoy it? Enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. Success is a journey, not a destination. Thank you for listening today. I really appreciate it. I'll be dropping in here for another podcast episode. Stay tuned. And if you want to know more about spiritual accounting, you can join me in the Untethered Facebook group. Big love.